Welcome, one and all, to Strange New Worlds, a Star Trek podcast by Phantastic Geek, your official, unofficial Star Trek podcast. My name is Matt, and joining me, as always, is Pete. Hailing frequencies are open.
You are the one who taught me to look outside of the box. Strange New Worlds, a Star Trek podcast by Phantastic Geek for episodes 301, Hegemony, Part 2, and 302, Wedding Bell Blues, come to you now via Wolkite Subspace Gauge Boson Beacon.
As one uses. But Pete, before we head to that beacon, let's talk about a couple of things. First of all, Punisher returning to our TVs before too long.
Yes, they've got to film something, Matt, before they film the Spider-Man movie. So you get your John Bernthal co-written Punisher special presentation going now until Spider-Man is available after an Odyssey.
uh, Already, the Odyssey, Pete, already, showings already sold out in Lincoln Center IMAX.
$200 tickets.
How much?
The prices now on the aftermarket.
Well, it it's how Christopher Nolan would want it. Um, but Pete, sticking with Marvel here for a second, you had texted me last night and said, "Oh, Disney has moved up, has made earlier when the Fantastic Four news embargo can be lifted, so people who have reviews can share it earlier, not later." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And as I thought about it, I said that they probably want people talking a little bit less about Superman and more about Fantastic Four, but what has come out since then are positively rave reviews for Fantastic Four.
Surprise! Yeah, they shifted the press screening to Friday night, and yeah, it was kind of a all hands on deck situation that they've now allowed that. So buoyed by that positive press, um, we will see that film, of course, on Thursday, July 24th, on the preview day. And we'll be bringing you our podcast on Marvel Monday, July 28th.
Pete, shifting gears, a lot of people listening to this podcast on the Strange New Worlds feed, many people listening to it on our pop culture podcast feed, and many a year in the middle of July on the pop culture podcast feed, we will do an episode on Emmy nominations, specifically shows that we've covered in various podcasts, but also some larger trends from there. And when the Emmy nominations came out this past week, and we were rooting for Andor the Acolyte, what Star Trek had been out, Lower Deck, Section 31, What If, and all that. Resounding raspberry. I mean, look, Andor, 14 nominations. It's the sixth most nominated show of the year. So that, on the one hand, that's no small feat there at all. But most of it technical, yes, outstanding drama series as well. But it was just a disappointing outing for all the shows that we've covered that had Emmy hopes, and really, in my mind, all of them coming up short.
Yeah, particularly the acting category for Andor. I don't know that you could look at the 12 episodes there. That's the other thing, that category is, you know, in terms of the number of episodes that leads are performing, and yes, there's a cutoff and everything like that, but you had 12 episodes there. How is Diego Luna not possibly a Best Actor nominee? I know, again, you're fighting limits and everything like that. There's clearly gamesmanship amongst the networks and the campaigns that go on and everything like that. And then you look at 14 nominations, one actor, okay, only Forrest Whitaker, okay, as a guest for Andor, no Genevieve Riley. Um, yeah, it's a real injustice I it's the age old, how can something be a best picture or a best series and not get directing nominations? Same question here. Was there no one performing in these episodes that got 14 nominations? Like it seems silly.
Yeah, and even things down to like the Acolyte. Okay, sound editing nomination, not visual effects, not production design, zero acting nominations for Agatha all along. Pete, I will note. I know we're going to
How
obviously
do you
talk.
not nominate Catherine Hahn?
Yeah.
Okay, for those. And again, it's competitive, but I just get the sense when you look at all the people nominated, these super campaigns run by these super competitors. I'm looking at you, HBO. I'm looking at you, Netflix. The amount of money they spend on these campaigns who get nominated. And oh, look, who dominates the nominations and who will dominate the wins come September.
Well, Pete, in a moment, we're obviously going to be talking much more Star Trek news than these Star Trek episodes. Before we leave the Emmy world, I do just want to note that with the sound editing nomination for Star Trek Section 31, that means that we can now officially say Section 31 Emmy nominated movie. So,
Wow, there's things you never ever expected would wind up in the same sentence. Um, yeah, but an Emmy nominated movie, that's like, isn't that kind of a what's the expression I'm looking for here? A backhanded compliment?
uh, while I think there are many quality TV movies out there throughout the years, I hear what you're saying that movies are best movieing in the movie house, etc. And
It's like
indeed,
being the tallest little leaguer.
Pete, speaking of movies, big movies in big theaters and so forth, do want to note that our podcast subject from last week, Superman 2025, here in the second weekend of release, has passed the $400 million mark globally. Had a strong $57 million weekend here in the US, which was a less than normal decline, or less than anticipated decline from week one to week two. So everything's certainly turning up roses there. And of course, people can hear our thoughts on that very fun film. Not only on the Pop Culture Podcast feed, but our new DC Studios podcast by Phantastic Geek, available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Continuing to soar there. And as we bring it back to Star Trek, Matt, where Paramount, despite the good feelings from these two episodes dropped for the season 3 premiere, finds every way to do the opposite of soar.
Yes, this curious decision to cancel The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, widely looked at as horse trading with the White House and so forth, the Writers Guild calling for an investigation. Um, it's troubling times, and not just for the 200 or so people that work there, not just for Stephen Colbert, who I think financially is going to be just fine, but just for a broad voices on television in general. And if we want to make it specific to Star Trek, you start to say, well, has Star Trek upset anybody in Washington, D.C.? Who's going to remember Stacey Abrams playing the president of the Federation 2 years ago and turned that into a thing that'll just be, well, it's just one more pound of flesh, David Ellison and Skydance. It's one more pound of flesh to give up along your way to buy this company. It's one more, one more degree on the boiling pot here. So again, broadly concerning, and specifically concerning for some of the content that is not just near and dear to our hearts, but I think that is important content to be out there.
The Writers Guild of America is calling for an investigation. I think that is greatly warranted. And Matt, look, what are they going to do? Cancel Strange New Worlds after its abbreviated fifth season?
Uh, Personally, Pete, if I was Inside Star Trek HQ, I would say we need to crank out this 6 episode fifth season. We need to crank it out ASAP. Before, because once it's in the can, unless it's Batgirl, at least it's going to get out there. So to answer your question, yes, I think that that is theoretically on the table. Um, if Star Trek were to draw the ire of the wrong people.
I just think I know in my heart Star Trek is going to get spun off and sold to someone else. It's just a matter of time. Um, yeah, I just this atmosphere here. If you can cancel the top rated talk show, and then the farce to call it a financial decision, then really anything's on the table at this point.
Well, Pete, here's a modest way to make things better from this bit of trouble. We'll get ready to talk about, a massive Gorn invasion that might take over the Federation as we head into our mission briefing.
And now, the conclusion, which was not said, Matt, when we watched this. At the end of June at Tribeca, they very clearly added the thing that the co-showrunner mentioned is his favorite thing with doing a two-parter ever, and they hadn't done. Gorn ships swirl at the Enterprise as Captain Pike is asked for his orders while he attempts to process everything. He asks Uhura to repeat Admiral April's last orders, which were to retreat and rendezvous, but Pike points out he didn't tell them to do so immediately. Haha, technicality. He asks the bridge for ideas. Number one says to jam the Gorn's comms so they can't coordinate attacks. Uhura modulates the deflector array to emit a spectrum of light. Next problem, beaming their people back from transport resistant ships. Number one says retreat and rescue is the best of a bunch of bad options. Spock suggests they use a rare element, Wolkite, that contains subspace gauge bosons. Mitchell says they can tag the Gorn with a Gud torpedo, but Spock says they'll still need to penetrate the Gorn's defenses. The plan, ram the destroyer and damn the torpedoes.
Pete, all of this familiar kind of space battle, naval battle type stuff, as you said, damn the torpedoes there, the notion of kind of like the dud torpedo. Again, it's kind of it's a familiar place that we are meeting back again with this show, even to rewind to the very beginning of the scene. Hey, repeat Admiral April's orders, which were said moments ago, however, like 22 months before, in between episodes and so forth. Let's repeat that as well. But indeed, with the shields at 30%, finding the right shield frequency, so you have those sympathetic harmonics, they make their way through the shields, they ram the Gorn ship, and they prepare for impact. Pete, will it be okay?
We'll just have to find out after that title card. At the rendezvous point, the USS Pablo Picasso hails, and April is beaming over to debrief. In sickbay, Nurse Chapel readies Captain Patel for cryostasis to pause the story clock on her incubating Gorn egg infection. Battelle reiterates if she reaches a point where she becomes a threat, she wants Chapel to put her down, but she tells her stasis will prevent progression. Chapel sedates her, but soon after, Battelle's body starts to reject the cryo serum. Chapel updates Pike with the bad news. Battelle is allergic to the serum, giving them less than a day before the Gorn eggs hatch. Double story clock.
Chapel, of course, is stuck doing this all herself. Again, a soft reminder that Dr. Mbenga is not here. Pike eyes Spock as he takes all this information in, the bad news of Batelle's situation here, and says that help is on the way. Indeed, Spock steps up to help. promising to stick with it until the situation is resolved. A very Vulcan way of saying, good or bad, I'll fight to the end here. We move on to Pike's tete-a-tete with Admiral April. They're going to just stand by on the situation. Pete, this a very interesting scene that I know you and I saw this episode back in June at Tribeca Festival. To watch it again this week after watching Superman, where there's a debate about standing by and letting things unfold, or immediately jump into action regardless of what those consequences might be, but jumping in because it's the right thing to do. That's kind of what this scene is about, as Pike argues about the innocent lives at risk right now. April saying that they are outside Federation territory. Think of the consequences and so forth. And again, I'm just sitting there going, I remember this scene from the Superman movie just merely a week ago.
Then there's the problem of the captured landing party and couple hundred colonists. Officially, April orders Pike to monitor the demarcation line. Unofficially, April asks Pike how to punch back and show the Gorn they won't be prey. In the spiffy new science lab set, Pelia presses Scotty for what his contraption does again because she hadn't rewatched part one, which is trick the Gorn that they're one of them. Only he doesn't remember how it does that. Pelia chides her former academy pupil for not keeping a work in progress log while jury rigging his device, breaking the first rule of engineering to write it down. But he recaps that the Gorn were ripping the Stardiver apart, of which he was the sole survivor. Pike enters to press them for a timeline to get it working. Scotty got it to work on his shuttle, but the Enterprise is a bigger problem he hasn't been able to account for. Pelia promises it'll be up before they cross the hegemony line.
Hashtag Scotty origin story. Meanwhile, in the Gorn ship, or rather outside it, we get this expansive VFX shot following one of the little raiders inside the interior. We make our way to the cocoon room, the digestive room. Our captured heroes are shown. Lon's tragic backstory wakes her up from the pod. This Pete in episode informed the Lon story is informed by her tragic backstory, complete with flashbacks. She pulls herself out of the cocoon, seeing all who are trapped. She starts by freeing the doctor, noting you start by freeing the doctor, then Sam Kirk, then Ortegas. And Ortegas is down two fingers, so if nothing else, Pete, that's the the story price placed upon Ortegas at this point.
Those dissolved digits on her right hand, Matt, a pilot kind of needs those.
One would think. One would think. Uh, though I think it's kind of generally clear to we, the audience. I do like it when things are made clear to the audience. And after our main characters here take a moment to assess the situation, what's happening, more crew, more colonists in the pods being digested. Things are disgusting. How do they get back? How will they rescue everyone? These are the stakes for this story arc here. To rescue everyone one by one would take far too long. Um, Instead, they need to launch the fight back. I see, Pete. I have a typo here. Time to lunch the fight back, which is kind of funny because this is the lunchroom of the Gorn.
Yes.
So even in the mistake, I am correct. But Pete, how can they even escape this situation? It seems so dire.
If only there were a pile of their crap.
Indeed, it does work out well that over here is the evacuation pile. Pete, that's evacuation in a digestive sense. The undigestibles here, things like phasers. Look, it's a pile of phasers in jelly of a particular sort or another. That's awfully convenient. Laon's plan is save everyone and get ready to shoot.
As Scotty struggles to recreate his Gorn cloaking device, Pelia tricks him by telling him they've arrived and they're all going to die. Under pressure, he solves the problem without thinking, just as Pike contacts them that they're about to enter Gorn space. Scotty didn't like her deception, but she says it was fun. Ever the teacher, she says, he puts up walls and is insubordinate to boot. But Scotty says she's not his CO who perished on his ship and asks to be excused. The Enterprise jumps out of warp and activates the device, which is like a modified electromagnetic pulse emitter. Uhura posits the Gorn must not use optical data, relying on biometrics, heat, and electromagnetic signatures. The hunter ships approach and must not have any windows. Uhura has a beat on the Wolkite beacon, but it's moving away to an uncharted binary system with off the charts stellar activity. Number one warns the radiation limit will limit them to impulse engines and shields will be useless. Pike peeks at Patel's vitals on his chair console.
Which works out well because the story moves to sickbay, where the hatchlings are now dependent upon Batel, just as Batel is dependent upon the hatchlings. It is, Pete, the nature of this infection, this growth here. So many solutions have been reflected upon previously off screen, all with 100% fatality outcomes as per the computer simulation. Spock runs a solution with an Orion street drug. While the computer runs that, like literally, the computer's going to run it just long enough. And I'm not being too sarcastic here. It's the marvel of writing, Pete. Just long enough for Spock to apologize how he reacted when Chapel left, a couple episodes ago. The thought of losing her affected him deeply. She reaffirms, almost as though setting things up for the next episode, that she's still going to go away to study with Roger Corby. And they will.
Doctor.
That's true. Not Mr. Dr. Roger Corby. And they're going to figure things out upon her return. Spock makes reference to a rather inclusive us, and Chapel says there's not going to be an us. There will be us individually, but not a couple sort of us here. And I have to say, Pete, this is a fine episode. Not as fun as 302 that we'll be discussing later in the podcast. But this was a fine scene on its own when we saw it back in June and so forth. But to be able to watch these two episodes paired together, I was reminded that a strength of Strange New Worlds is episodic story, but serial characters, and the fact that this is an honest scene again because the Orion Street Drug scenario is running. This is a scene that is taking past stuff, setting up future stuff, and it's a well done moment within the structure of this show.
With the screenwriting on the wall, Matt, Chapel asks Spock not to wait for her, but they're interrupted by the computer's prediction that the Zadora extract treatment will also fail. The problem lies with Patel's human DNA, and they both land on an Illyrian assist via Una designed to ward off infections in real time. Spock notes it's against regulations, and Chapel runs the simulation. On the Gorn ship, they found the hangar where they plan to access the mainframe, upload the transporter codes, and get them to the Enterprise. Ortega says to do that, they'll need to steal a ship and fly out. In the disheveled ready room, number one and Uhura recap for Pike the connection between Gorn sightings and stellar events. Uhura has discovered periods of inactivity. The science team isolates the presence of X class flares that precede their absence. Pike gives them Attagirls, but Uhura adds the bad news that they could be on the verge of a long cycle of aggression, an arena of invasion, even.
I hope, Pete, they do address, a forward-looking statement by the end of the episode to help make sure it's completely in line with continuity. But something tells me they're going to do that at least twice. For now, though, Pike reflects on Batel's situation, and Una's blood indeed may be the helping factor here. He's discussing with Una. Of course, all of this is conveniently off the record the mission and therefore all the mission details, including, we are in grand Star Trek tradition. There's the rule of genetic modification, and then but now Una's okay, but we really shouldn't be using her blood, but that's okay too because it's all off the books. Pete, this is the most jaunty off the books Star Trek adventure that we've had this calendar year by far. Look at you, Section 31. The message here, Pete, from Una to Pike: focus on hope. You see, Pete, it really is a Superman movie.
The computer simulation gives the Illyrian infusion a 14% chance. The Enterprise enters the binary system, and Pike tells an exhausted Mitchell to call for relief. Respectfully, she declines until they get everyone back. Uhura locates the destroyer, which heads between the stars and appears to jump away. As another coronal mass ejection, that's your CME, Matt, happens, the Gorn hatchlings in Batel begin to activate. Spock says they have to proceed with the low chance for survival. Uhura maintains a faint fix on the Wolkite, and the bridge discusses the conditions. Pike posits it's the way to the Gorn homeworld. Just then, an armada departs, headed straight for the Federation. Uhura can send a warning but not confirm its receipt. They can't leave, though, because they'll lose their lock on the Wolkite and, by extension, their people. Number one suggests a long range communication buoy that will allow them to return. Pike orders Mitchell after the fleet to warn the Federation.
In sick bay, we see the Gorn babies throbbing under the skin, and it very much is go time here. The plasma solution from Una is injected. We go back to the bridge. Pete, it's just feverish cross cutting here. Um, which is interesting because a bit later in the episode, a lot of things happen off screen. But for now, on the bridge, they can't get out of the system on impulse because the radiation, all previously established. They can't get out of the system faster than the Gorn are moving. They also can't fight their way out. Pete, it's a no-win scenario. Pike sighs and thinks, then calls Pelia to the bridge, with the theory of the Gorn sleep signal being part of the equation here. They need to create a stellar flare. Scotty has come along with Pelia, and he notes that you can't make a star do anything. So, of course, they need the ship to act like a star. Scotty explains how difficult, nay, impossible this would be, workshopping the no while he and Pelia end up arriving at a yes. Of course, there is massive risk here to the ship. And Pike says, really a great solution, Pete. Turn it off before we blow up. With that, get it done.
1 in 1,000 chance that Scotty gives them. We're seeing the origins of a miracle worker. In sick bay, in those shower curtain updated hazmat suits from the original series that Spock wore all the way back in the 60s. Battelle is responding favorably, and Chapel is ready to cut the hatchlings out, but Spock stops her at the last second, suggesting they prevent them from emerging by feeding them within her system. There's no time to run a simulation on that at a moment of highest tension at this point in the episode, Matt. The landing party has lost its Gorn pursuers off screen to avoid undue special effects costs, and La'an locates an interface and uses her memories of her brother to use it and find the codes. They just need to get them to the Enterprise, but here come the Gorn again. A big one gets the drop on Lon. Sam tries to stop it, and Ortegas is impaled and hoisted before Lon goes for the jugular.
Which is a great scene there, great moment there for Alon. The Enterprise approaches the binary stars. Once the Gorn cloak is down, all will come for the ship. That is, of course, the plan. Now make us shine like the sun. With that, the Enterprise starts to absorb the solar radiation. Back on the Gorn ship, and I will say, Pete, every time I've watched this episode, it's kind of been this moment of, I get we have the Enterprise, it's doing its thing. There's the Gorn threat, there's the Gorn ship with La'an and company. This is always the moment where I go, oh wait, if Pike's thing does a quick magic, blow up all the bad guys, or however they're going to resolve that, we have goodies on the Gorn ship, and we need to bridge that quickly. I don't know to what degree this was meant to be an aha moment for everyone in the audience, but it's worked particularly well. You go, great, we're starting to finally beat up the Gorn now. We're getting ready with our Gorn defeat plan. Wait, meanwhile, on the Gorn ship, our crew enter a small ship. They put Ortegas in the seat. Luckily, the ship responds, and all the lights and beeps and bloops were to life here. The ship fires up, and they take off, Gorn in pursuit, all while the panels slowly fill with the blood of Ortegas, courtesy of that injury you mentioned earlier.
Amid some questionable camera techniques, the Armada has reversed course, and Enterprise gets the transport codes from La'an. As hull integrity approaches failure, the Gorn go home. Pike orders them to turn off the magnetic field, and Uhura confirms they have several hundred uh, of the survivors headed for the overflow infirmary. La'an reminds them they need pickup, and number one says that they've done it. They've triggered Gorn hibernation. Pike wonders if they didn't create a problem for someone else to solve in their own arena.
We're also at the point in the story where the Parnassus colonists have been beamed back off screen to the auxiliary sick bay that you mentioned, Pete, which is an off screen place because we're in main sick bay with, two of our main actors and one of our guest stars. And Scotty's going to beam on and company off, and they're going to do that off screen as well. But the good news is this, Pete. The good news for all this, Admiral April is told that the Enterprise has punched back, and indeed the Gorn situation resolved for now. On the Gorn Hunter ship, Ortegas all but passes out, appears to be dying. We have our standard hang in there, stay with us kind of moment, which I want to say, Pete, is an interesting moment because we just heard the vaunted Scotty say, in moments I will beam them off. So even though I'm sure Ortegas is not happy that her vital lifeblood is pouring out of her, and our heroes on the Gorn Hunter ship don't know that saving is imminent. We do. So again, it's kind of a weird moment of lack of stakes. Yes, maybe we're setting up some lasting Ortegas effect here, but just wanted to point that out. It's perhaps a mildly rough edge here.
They're smart in that they know they can play with Ortega's fate. She does not appear in the original series, so we can have the drama there, right? Will she survive this injury? Um, we didn't talk about it before, and I just remember my shock that they would throw it out there when Mbenga examines her back on the ship when we first watched it in June. Oh yeah, we can fix that when we return to the Enterprise. We can just grow you new fingers back that have dissolved off. But all right,
Well, Pete, speaking of all this medical stuff, and speaking of scenes that we haven't seen here, good news. The Battelle surgery is over. We are now in post surgery. Spock and Chapel step into a hallway to reveal, because there is some question here. I mean, not really, because we've seen this season on Stranger Worlds. We see Patel's okay, but in the moment, we don't really know what's happened. They did all they could do to help. Battelle now needs time to heal. Okay, we get to exhale. Pike arrives. This is kind of confirmed again to him. Spock and Chapel part. Pike in the infirmary is told by Una that all is well, and Una is told by Pike, let's take the ship home.
he prepares himself to go behind the privacy glass into the lab while Battelle recovers, finding her unconscious. He tells his father he wins, kneels, and begins to pray an hour, father, waking Battelle. He recaps and tells her he shouldn't, and she tells him he shouldn't have done it. But he confesses he really doesn't want to lose her. The Enterprise clears the binary system and warps away, taking us to Wedding Bell Blues.
Which is a nice opportunity to say, Pete, to those listening in the far off future, episodes 301 and 302 dropped at the same time. Normally, we would end this episode and talk about theories and so on and so forth. But seeing as how we've all sat down and watched these two episodes this week, indeed, we head into Wedding Bell Blues that opens with Spock's log as the Enterprise spends a coincidental 3 months of repairs. Pete, something we talked about in our season previews. What if the entire absence of the Dr. Corby, the time that Chapel spends
Fellowship.
with Dr. Corby, yeah, the fellowship, what if that is just merely in between episodes? But Pete, today is not any normal day. It is also the Federation Day Centennial, or rather, it's 3 days away, so we are fast approaching it. Hosting a gala on the ship will improve crew morale. Plus, Chapel is on her way back. And an amusing moment where Spock wonders which blue uniform is best.
Yes, not having spoken to Chapel the entire time she's been away. Aboard Starbase One, Spock practices dancing with La'an, who tells him he's stiff even for him. Spock is surprised at her dancing ability, and she confesses there was a time she wanted to be nothing more than a prima ballerina, but now she's beaten the gone. Some Vulcans don't dance, but he is defying that rule to make a grand romantic gesture for Chapel. Uhura cuts in over comms with the heads up that Chapel is about to beam over. In the transporter room, Scotty sees Spock fixing his hair, and La'an arrives to clear Chapel's visitor. Scotty thought he saw a sensor ghost outside the hall, but it's gone now. We'll pay that no more mind until it becomes the real thrust of this episode. He beams aboard a surprised Chapel, who introduces Dr. Roger Corby. Spock has read all 234 of his archaeological medicine papers. Corby notices Spock has a first edition of the Vulcan Salvavantor as a gift for Chapel. La'an asks if Corby will need quarters, much to Chapel's chagrin, who explains he is her date. This amok time.
We have the credits and come out of them into the workout room where Ortegas is getting back up to speed, speaking Spanish, so that some people online can get really really upset over the detailed minutia. Pete, it is apparently the first time any human has ever spoken another language other than whatever is native to your ears in the history of Star Trek, except for all the times that it's been done around the universal translator, etc., etc. I know, however, Pete, this must be the future because a drone with a camera flies in, if you can imagine such things. She swats at it. Her sparring partner is a serious filmmaker, and he's about to introduce himself to Uhura, but is taken down by Ortegas, who explains that he is the baby brother to be named later in the episode, Beto. It would have been nice if they mentioned it here, but I don't think they did.
Free of her first episode hair hat, Uhura has the news that Chapel has brought a date back, and the instant chemistry that she has with little brother Beto is apparent.
We go to sickbay where a new ensign nurse is taking Una's blood. He is unfortunately on his way out. Pete, he seems like such a charismatic guy, but Chapel is back. However, Dr. Mbenga wants to extend the time for this still unnamed ensign. Pete, there's just so much mystery in the air here.
Ensign Nurse. That's how I have the character credited.
It's also offered up that Batel is now fully healed, all courtesy of Una's blood, and they've been glad to have this nurse around.
Yeah, this now permanent posting, who apparently there are no HIPAA laws in the future, can openly discuss another patient's progress with a third party.
Well, Pete, let's move to Pike, who's also glad that Batel is around. He's putting on all his medals while Batel looks out the window. Pete, she's kind of in an easy chair and she's clad kind of in a robe to just really, again, I'm not being sarcastic here. It's costuming and hairstyling and light makeup and so forth to really sell the like, I'm still working on me. I'm still getting better day by day,
I'm
getting stronger.
sick.
Indeed. Um, Interesting kind of Starfleet hierarchy stuff here. It's mentioned that she has a dozen commissions to pick from when she is ready to return to the captain's chair, which I think, Pete, I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't know how real navies do it, but I feel like, the captain of a capital ship out of commission for 3 months plus, um, medical healing, intelligence debriefing, so on and so forth. Yeah, it's time for her old ship, I believe it's the Cayuga. It's time for them to have a new captain, a new permanent captain, and she can go along for the next one as it comes along. Like I feel like that all checks separate from some story intrigue here. If she leaves, she'll be away from Pike and all that. It just, to me, it just works story wise. It works kind of space navy wise, and I'm here for the ride.
I think it's more so about their relationship here. She wants to return to her job. The problem is, whatever she picks, it's going to take her away from him. That he even says the phrase that they're on borrowed time. Um, and the disclosure here that he was an altar boy, this religious Pike backstory, appearing in this third season. He's not ready to let her go, though she wants to go and still wants to see him. And she teases him about where they'll put all his hair products when he moves into her quarters.
From quarters to quarters, in Spock's quarters, Chapel is there to return the book, and Ethan Peck does such a wonderful job walking the line of emotion and non emotion. Just, this is now what, our fourth season of TV with him playing Spock, and boy, does he just, he's such a gift to the character, to
It's
the.
in the blood, man.
This is true. He, Spock, voiced by Ethan Peck, asks about her wish to be single now that she's brought her boyfriend home for the holidays. Which again, it's walking this great line. You're able to do it because this is the era of Spock that's a little less under control and so forth. Now, Pete, for this next thing here, I want to preface it by saying I saw somebody online confused that the scene ends with Captain Pike looking at them from out the window and therefore wondering if this entire episode or perhaps entire season is just a dream. Can you address that?
What?
Yes, it is in fact not Captain Pike. It is a mysterious, spacefaring creature played by Reese Darby, who I think we're going to learn more about before the end of the episode. So all you need to do when you're confused by stuff that's on, a streaming show on a streamer, there's this little button on your remote that's got the two vertical lines that pauses it, and that's when you can say, wait a minute, that's not TV's Anson Mount, that's TV's Reese Darby, and that's a different person. Therefore, Captain Pike is not a ghostly figure out the window. It's a guy who I heard might be in the show, or if I haven't watched the this that the other, that's a new face and maybe brings about new adventures.
Oh my goodness. Chapel still invites Spock with the others to drinks in the port galley that night. On the way there, Ortegas says she'll have one. before returning to train, giving Beto time to hang with Ahura, but she doesn't want them flirting, so she's going to stick around. Sam is a Corby stan and asks about climbing Mount Caleb on Vadian 9. Chapel is in the midst of recapping the romantic story when Spock arrives after finishing work early, having become a student of romance. Chapel explains that when she was little, her mother would tell her to find the sun, the moon, and the stars, which would also be her last words. Corby took her to the spot to see them on her mother's birthday and give her a rare Talarian star gem bracelet. Spock slinks off to swirl his drink, and the reflection of a temporary Vulcan bartender is revealed to be Reese Darby, asking if he's ready for a change, different, but better. He prepares him a special drink he encourages to swirl around, but not drink too quickly, lest it go right to his head. Goes to bed and wakes up beside Chapel, who tells him no sleepover the night before their wedding.
Dun dun dun. Spock's log, as the Enterprise concludes 3 months of repairs. Oh, wait, it's kind of also Groundhog Day. And today's the day of Spock and Chapel's wedding. He is practicing dancing with Lon. I love these time loop things. He concludes by stepping away from the rehearsal. Our mystery man appears different in the pad reflection, with Pike calling him an Andorian, though we see him as human. Best man Roger Corby arrives with the cake, but the wedding planner puts him way over there. So shall we do a Hucon or Volmon hybrid wedding? The first bite of the cake brings heat and brine. The mystery man literally snaps the cake samples into a new form. I feel like I've seen that somewhere before.
Hmm.
This time it's like chocolate and Vulcan Placor, which apparently, Pete, is much better than a spicy, briny cake.
The planner assumes they won't have a Caliphie situation, and Pike will serve as best man, while number one and Mbanga waltz Chapel down the aisle. Her mother's preserved bridal flowers arrived from Vermont this morning, but they are wilted when she opens them. The planner again snaps his fingers and they revive. Corbs tries to talk to Chapel again, but the planner has to take her to her final dress fitting.
On a walkway, Corby is trying to tap into Spock's quarters and indeed gets in. Spock finds him, and Spock accuses Corby of trying to sabotage the situation. The reason is because this is not supposed to happen. Reality has shifted. Corby and Chapel are not best friends. They are together romantically. Only Corby remembers the truth, including how the 3 months together turned romantic, and she kissed him. With that, Spock punches Corby, knocking him out. And I like the bit of humor here that Corby then awakens and Spock is next to him, but not in that kind of way, Pete. It's in a humorous way.
After planting one on his kisser, here Corby comes to on the bed next to Spock, who apologizes and remembers the things how they really were. He asks if he's tried telling Chapel, but she shot him down. He's already checked himself for phase variance. He and Chapel arrived at the same time, so it's not an environmental hallucinogen. It might be an improbability field, particularly after the musical episode. But Spock is not going to proceed with the wedding. Every time Corby tries to stop it, something interferes, which Spock says suggests an advanced intelligent life form with reality altering capabilities. Corby posits his rigorous intellect may have shielded his mind from the illusion, but Spock thinks his might be bigger.
Such subtext. They decide to go to the science lab. The wedding planner arrives, however, before they can leave, and Corby notes that he is Andorian. Pete, to our eyes, he looks like the human Rhys Darby with kind of mutton chop sideburns there that do look vaguely familiar with. Pete, is there anything else in this scene that gives you a sense of deja vu or familiarity?
The planner arriving with greetings and many felicitations to confirm his identity on the day before the wedding. He also wants Corby to catch a facial with the rest of the bridal party.
Well, to the science lab we go, and the camera work here presents it as a new set, which is kind of weird because I know we saw it last episode, maybe under kind of a tense situation here, but definitely the camera work is like, look at this new space. Regardless, Sam Kirk arrives with wine selections. Spock, however, recaps the truth of things, including Sam suffering from an unknown phenomenon. Pause. Sam gets it. It's cold feet. It's normal. Um, uh, Spock suggests that perhaps a punch would work here. No. How about an emotional reaction? You are sloppy, less intelligent than your brother, Jim Kirk, and no one likes your mustache. Hilarity in this jaunty
With
episode.
awful taste in wine. But Sam sees right through it. Wait a minute. If, yeah, right, if he'd be able to give Spock a black eye the day before their wedding, Chapel would kill him. But surprise, surprise, Matt, it took the computer just that long for the scan to complete, having found no anomalies.
Well, next up, Spock and Corby go see Pike, who is aware of the urgent situation. Welcome to the bachelor party. Sam pours the drinks. Scotty hardly drinks anything. He hardly drinks ever. Thank you very much. Hashtag Scotty origin story continued. Spock toasts, telling the truth of the situation, the gravity of it all, the changing nature of reality, wedding misfortune, and so forth. But no one believes him. Later, he and Corby discuss that the direct use of truth here doesn't do it. Meanwhile, Scotty tastes Vulcan food and does need a bit of Saurian brandy to wash it down. So maybe Pete, maybe the real victim here, or the real evil here, is Vulcan food that can set you down a path of lifelong drinking.
Spock and Corby speculate that in addition to anger, love could break the spell. Corby asks how many guests are invited, and Spock locates the extra person hiding in plain sight in the port galley. They blow off karaoke to confront the planner bartender. He can do anything he likes, snaps his fingers, and the whole ship shakes. The next morning, he's on the bed next to Spock, who will not cooperate. The planner snaps his fingers, and Spock has shrunk into a glass and snaps him back to full size.
With that, it's wedding bell time. We have Beto's drone flying by, Uhura looking stunning. Corby is the maid of honor, and if he doesn't behave, he'll be wished into the cornfield. That's a Twilight Zone reference, but you can't
Mm-hmm.
say it. It's a Twilight Zone reference because that might offend some of the people at Paramount Plus who took the or actually the third revival series that was on Paramount Plus and sent it to the cornfield as well. I think it now has since shown up on Pluto TV or something. But just so you know, Pete, the original cornfield episode is still there on Paramount Plus, which again they're missing an opportunity to hype that because somebody at Paramount might be upset that they canceled a thing and made it disappear. But I'm not bitter, Pete. Look, here comes the bride, and she looks stunning.
Corby wonders if the only way to end it is to play the stranger's game. Pike interrupts because it's time, and as you said, the bride walks down the aisle in her elaborate hair hat. Matt, the hair game for these first two episodes. Interesting if not sometimes on point. The planner is also the efficient, and Corby objects prematurely getting turned into a dog. Spock quotes Neruda, just as Corby had on their first date to Chapel, and helps her realize they're not supposed to be getting married. She goes to the dog, but the planner threatens to kill everyone except the alien without a mouth. When a glowing cloud with a familiar voice interrupts, Daddy Q snaps Corby back, and the 8,020-year-old Trillane child promises he'll behave after all.
With the planner now poofed away, there's a moment of confused chaos, but Pike gives a speech about Federation Day. How fitting that our centennial be marked by another awkward interaction with, strange new life form and all of that. The bar is open. To the bar, Scotty, Pete, this is how I know I really like this iteration of Scotty here. He orders 2 pints of Guinness, um, as we have
Once
some.
for Mbenga, right? And not both for him, right?
I, I would hope both need not be for him, seeing as how it's an open bar in a moneyless future, and you can just get a second one after the first one. So yeah, him and Mbenga sharing a Guinness. Um, it's a lovely moment.
Yeah. Um, Back to the motivation, though, why Trillane uh, followed Corby here. He was annoyed by him, his smarts, his looks on the old home world, not specifically cited whether it was Vadia 9 or not. Um, but with a tally ho, he headed off. Again, a touchstone to that appearance of Trelane in the original series. Would be three bottom limbs as well. Uh, Hired away by Pike and Number One. Wonder maybe if there's a brother who will eventually work on the Enterprise.
Wonderful to have the Edosian species here. I'll repeat what Memory Alpha said to have them officially in live action. I was like, wait, they already were. I think it was a
They
deleted
have been
scene.
in live action since 2009.
Yeah, well, it might have been a deleted scene in.
No,
No.
no, no.
Well, good.
On
That was my recollection too, and it just goes to show you that Memory Alpha is made by
visible
people.
on the bridge of the Kelvin.
Uh, there you go. All the more reminder that, or maybe Memory Alpha had hedged it as, main universe.
It's in our universe. It's
Regardless,
in our universe prior to the Narada coming through. So yeah.
well, then you know what? I'll return to my original point here. Memory Alpha, made by people that are imperfect, as are we all. Um, but we have Chapel and Corby reconnecting and dancing. They swear to never talk about this again, which is handy, Pete, because there's that other episode in the original series where they meet again and they don't talk about this stuff. So they're true to their words. Um, and with all these people dancing here, we have Uhura and Beto clinking drinks to annoy Erica. And then, as time has passed a bit here, Spock looking on, he's joined by La'an. Now he's learned to dance and isn't doing anything with it. But indeed, wasn't his shoulder placement measured precisely? So, indeed, Pete, it's time for them to dance to Jitterbug with happiness everywhere.
Everybody whams the dance floor except for Ortegas, who Pike sees ominously slip off to cut a punching bag rather than a rug in her PTSD reflection.
Pete, we have a tactical analysis of this week's double threats. Let's start with the Gorn.
Had to obviously pick up with part two to continue to build on the menace of a species, originally seen through the limited lens of prosthetic work in 1966. So, of course, you give them, right, the CGI upgrade. We have the closest thing we've gotten to this point of that original prosthetic, this gigantic 8-foot iguana, as Ortegas describes it, from the safety of her recovery uh, that lifts her into the air. Um, all of these Gorn now seemingly have been sent into hibernation, but the thing that every Star Trek series has done is really kind of pick their adversary, and it would seem that Strange New Worlds has settled on the Gorn.
Yeah, I certainly in the sense of have your cake and eat it too. If they choose not to return to the Gorn for the rest of the series, fine. The Gorn are in hibernation until they start to poke out again and classic Trek, etc., etc. Um, it's also easy enough to say, look, we've come across a whatever the Sentry Gorn, who are the ones that look scans have shown they don't hibernate, or they hibernate when everyone's aggressive, and when everyone's aggressive, that's when they hibernate, etc., etc. They're the mirror ones, whatever it is, right? There's plenty of options here for more Gorn action. I certainly feel satisfied that for the foreseeable future, we will be Gorn free in reality. Of course, Ortegas has some Gorn issues to work through, so we might get to dust off that suit sooner than you think.
You have the the threat of them existential in both Batel's recovery, right? They've been absorbed, but they've given her Illyrian blood to do that so you could return to it in some regard there. And then the lingering recovery of Ortegas, who's very much affected to the point that she's not bringing up with others by this encounter.
Which I found a bit surprising. That said, what has been a common, I'll say complaint, what has been a common plea from this podcast in the first two seasons of Strange New Worlds, give us more Ortegas stuff, give us
Right.
backstory, give us characterization, give us a forward looking arc, etc. Would I have chosen Gorn PTSD? I mean, not in particular, but if we're going to spend two episodes, two razzle dazzle episodes across two seasons with the Gorn as the major threat, a third if you want to include the submarine style episode, sure, that's as good a source as any to give Ortegas emotional, character driven stuff to reflect about, act on, and so forth.
Come on, force the hotshot pilot out of her comfortability and include a sibling there that she could confide to. I mean, come on.
Looking at the second threat of these two episodes, that of Trelane, it was really a wonderful way to roll out their interpretation of this character, particularly when you factor in that the first third of the episode, certainly quarter, he's not in it aside from kind of floating in the window sort of thing, major mystery upon mystery. Which is to say, yes, the set photos were out there and so forth, and his outfit reminiscent of the Trelane classic Trek outfit and so
He's got
forth.
the medals, man. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
but I think that here's what I'm trying to say: that if you weren't, it was in the middle of the episode that I said, "Wait a minute, it was the the sideburns that did it for me. I need to look at a picture of Trelane." And as soon as I saw that, I said, "Okay, great."
Yeah.
But my point is, it's not like he shows up in they're 30 seconds into a normal mapping scan, and all of a sudden a guy shows up in a flash of light and says, "I'm here to cause trouble. I'm Trelane." Dot dot dot. Like they did a good job hiding the reveal in an episode that's not meant to be like, oh man, this is the one that helps me understand what racism is like, or how one day we can still hope for peace but still wield war. Like, we're having fun the entire time, And hidden in that fun is the fact that we have a legacy character being revealed.
Well, two things. One, that they never referred to him as Trelane, but that's been confirmed by the showrunners. He's Trelane. Two, to connect him now canonically in a way that the 1994 novel Q Squared by Peter David had theorized that Trelane was a Q, and you bring in John Delancey's disembodied voice as the dad, right? It's Daddy Q, Trelane, Baby Q. Um, and then the thing that's interesting as well is because of the unique nature of the continuum, potentially for that character, because people are like, why doesn't he um, remember Spock when he sees Spock in the original series? Uh, he's got dark hair then, he's got lighter hair now. That could be in his past, though it's in the character's future.
I'll give another option. Pete, have you ever met a dog in a park?
Yeah.
Okay, if you met the same dog 20 years later, and unfortunately dogs tend not to go on that long, but my point being this: you are such an evolved creature. If you meet another adorable pup in the park years and years later, you might vaguely remember good times meeting dogs in parks, but you're not going to say, hey, that's the same rover that I met in a different park X number of years ago. Let's not forget Trelane Station here. He already has 8,000 years of life under his belt, and he's a youngin'. Even if time is flowing in a linear fashion for him, all the adventures, the twists and turns, the, rock molten lava people, the, creatures in the invisible dimension, all of that is part of his existence and part of his adventures. Yeah, I think anybody who's throwing rocks and saying, well, technically Trelane should be remembering Spock, and yeah, but no, that's not what the story is asking for, and this is a silly, lighter story. I'm not saying let the story be lazy, but let's work in the milieu of the story. But again, furthermore, his existence, whether it's the flow of time or the peons that surround him on these little adventures that he has, they're so insignificant that of course he's not going to remember Spock. I know it, Pete, because the story says so. Let's use our long range sensors to scan for some theories. Pete, where would you like to start?
Are the Gorn gone?
Again, I think the intention at the time, let's say this episode was written, shot, etc. I think the intention is for the Gorn to be gone. If you tell me that there's some point between now and the end of the season where the Gorn show up again, and the writing room knew it all along, okay, cool, great. They have set me up to think the next time the Gorn show up is going to be Arena, Classic Trek, and they're subverting my expectations if the plan is sooner. If it's put the Gorn up on the shelf and save it for a rainy day, save it for a better story idea to come along, but we don't know what it is as we film the season 3 premiere, okay, that's fine too. I think it's good to have stuff on the shelf that isn't necessarily part of the pre-planned 5 episode Gorn arc.
Also gives Lon this room to grow now, right? That she can talk about her life prior to the Gorn existing as this monster under the bed, always waiting for their return. She's beaten them. She can also be there to help an Ortegas kind of overcome this. So maybe firm up a connection between those two characters.
Yeah, and when we first saw the inclusion of her flashback stuff in 301, kind of was like, ugh, are we really, like, I get that it's this major trauma on her, and I'm not trying to take away real life trauma, but come on, this is a fictional character. Let's move on here. If by the end of 301 we are moving on from it, and there's that every indication because there's the line, like, finally I've defeated the Gorn and life shall move on, etc. Great. I am happy with that because I feel like we've done everything we need to do with La'an's tragic backstory and how it needs to impact her contemporary character.
Do you remember the type of flare that shut the Gorn down, that send them into hibernation?
I mean, it's a something with a or something similar to a CME, but the particulars I do not remember.
The CME is what wakes them. The mass ejection, right? The diminishing the X class flares, Matt. Explained to us by Rebecca Romaine, not in X-Men First Class. Rebecca Romaine, that has admitted during the press junket here for season 3 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, that as they're filming season 4, she has been back and forth already to England, where she is filming Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah, I saw a post. I don't know whether it was her Instagram or somebody else's, where apparently it's, in this year of 2025, apparently they're doing the old fashioned makeup and it's hours and hours and hours to get the Mystique makeup on, which I'm sure is annoying for her, but
Doesn't that contradict Alan Cummings' statements?
look, maybe when you're Alan Cumming, you say, "I will happily come back for the money that you are offering me, but I'm also filming this reality show, or I'm a Tony Award winner. Like, I'm not sitting in a makeup chair for more than blank." And as I've said in prior seasons of Strange New Worlds, I just have a gut sense that Rebecca Romaine, who came out of small town wherever to be scooped up into the world of modeling, and then all of a sudden high end modeling and Victoria's Secret stuff, and then all of a sudden, hey, you want to be in movies, as a model? Great. Hey, you don't mind standing around in your underwear? What if we painted you blue and there's these whatever British actors in a movie that's probably not going to go too far. Boom, now you're Mystique. Now this, now that, and how her career has taken all these twists and turns to a point that she's now in Pete, what the modeling world would say is the advanced age of in her 50s. She remains lovely and luminescent to this day. But here she is back playing Mystique. I think she's probably of the mindset like, hey, if I need to stand for 8 hours, you can paint Mystique petals on me or whatever that's going to be. Cool, let's do it because this might be the last Mystique outing the way the last one was, or the last one before that, the last one, et cetera, et cetera. So I just think she's open for whatever these twists and turns in this crazy world might bring her.
Well, definite nod to X-Men with those X-class flares that push the Gorn into hibernation. Coming out of hibernation, Matt, Scotty, we get to see him right before our eyes becoming a miracle worker and an alcoholic.
Yeah. Yes, yes to both. I guess the funny kind of TV and film drinking, alcoholism perhaps. Um it will be interesting to see, let's say in the remainder of this season, the upcoming 8 episodes, how much Scotty origin story do we get relative to he's the new toy in the writing room for 301, a very very busy episode, and 302 where we kind of need to now establish him as part of the normal crew, and the normal workflow and all of that. Um, do I think we need Scotty origin story stuff every episode for the rest of the season? No. I also think this is a show that is very disciplined by saying, "Oh wow, we barely had Mbenga for 2 episodes. Next stop, and Mbenga, heartfelt story and things of that sort." So, yeah, I like that we're getting the Scotty stuff here, and of course, this entire season filmed before there was the end point 6 episode fifth season. Before there were these statements like, "This show will end potentially with our classic Trek crew having all come together." So if we're going to have those kind of road signs along the way as we build the next thing, uh Scotty's a fine place to do it.
This our 42nd episode, Matt, with the 43rd next week. We hit the halfway point. So technically right now there's still more Star Trek Strange New Worlds in front of us than there is behind.
Well, I will take heart in that. Pete, I just want to circle back to some of the elements here for 301 that I know we hit in the recap, but some of these multiple moments of things happening off screen, even down to we have the whole surgery, the laser circular vacuum thing that we're about to use on Battelle, and then we say, wait, stop. Let's do a solution that not only is going to be like internal in terms of feed the Gorn babies and then her blood will reabsorb them, but it's also done off screen. Do you think that this season premiere, I don't know, somewhere along the way had less money allocated towards it? Do you think that maybe they didn't shoot it first for whatever reason, and then when you get to a later point in the shooting order, you go, oh, now we need to self take away some money because we didn't know that the this or the that was going to be more expensive. Your thoughts there on an episode where a lot happens off screen?
I think it's all baked into the story they're telling. I don't think they were cheaping out at that point. I mean, what's it set up? And that we were at Tribeca Festival where the host had asked, well, wait a minute, why wouldn't you just beam the hatchlings out? And the explanation there was, well, it'd be a shorter episode if we did. It's all story and character. Ready? Matt, who apprehended Una to bring her back, and then to be the the judge advocate general against Una in the court case about her illicit Illyrian origin.
Gasp! It was Battelle.
Oh my goodness. And now you've created a situation. It's almost like you went into a room where just writers go to come up with an ironic situation for the prosecutor to need an infusion of blood from the very person she put through that trial, right? So that she's got the Illyrian irony infusion and all the repercussions that come with that. What's repercussion number one? It saves her. Bing. Okay. What are further repercussions we might not know yet? She has her body has absorbed. She's the only human ever we know to receive this infusion to try to tackle this infection. You mean to tell me there'll be no more side effects that they can't account for? Huh. What about later in the season where suddenly like she's doing strange feats or she has odd cravings? Like it's character 101, man.
Well, let's stick with Battelle here. What do you think? Well, first, let me back up and say clearly, excellent casting job. Clearly, the fact that we have this Battelle through line across things now into the third season, it's all to the great benefit of the show. What do you think the story clock is in terms of Battelle's recovery? How long is she kind of on the? How long is her story purpose within episodes? The girlfriend who's staying over. How long until you think we have the sad goodbye, nay, the fun of, oh, look, I could choose this ship. That's a cool design. That ship, that's a cool, like, how long until all of that stuff, which of course is going to run secondary to some of the other larger character concerns.
I mean, with Canadian based Melanie Scrofano's availability now full time, Matt, what will the Patel Pike storyline look like? She wanting to go, him wanting her to stay, the prospects of what have to happen with Pike down the line, right? His horrifying injury, his eventual coupling with Vina. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a temporary thing. This was also something that came out of the discussion with the panel at Tribeca Festival, right? The panelists telling Pike he's gonna die.
When, of course, he's not going to die. He's going to, well, when last we chronologically saw Pike, he was off to Talos 4, where that story's conceit was he would be able to live in, free of his injuries and so forth. Do you think, Pete, now that, here we are, as you said, we're not even in the second half of this entire series, not season, but series. Do you think that the show might use Battelle as a story tool to give Pike more time after going to Talos 4 to be rejuvenated? Or does she go to live with him there? All due respect to Vina, who we've all liked for these many years, but do you think there's any hope there? Are they building up the Battelle relationship because that is the new endpoint that the show will bring?
I don't know that they would violate what's come before as an endpoint for Pike. That's a them conversation. I see nothing on the wall to indicate that at this point. Interestingly, Matt, relatedly, they have discussed on this press junket that the show will begin the early days of Kirk's enterprise, that will be part of the end of Strange New Worlds.
And I think that at Tribeca Festival, when it was kind of floated like, hey, if Paramount would like to do more, we have these sets and costumes and so forth. We could start to do the early adventures of Captain Kirk as its own series. And that kind of was all vaguely floated. I feel like I've seen further discussions on this press tour where that continues to be floated out there, which, I don't want the end of Strange New Worlds anytime soon, but I'll feel a whole lot better if it gets announced. eh, All hail new Paramount ownership guy. Hopefully, he's not going to knock down the whole castle as he whatever. But I would feel a whole lot better if it was, and the 6 episodes are then going to roll into 4 more episodes, which will be a true bridge between this and that the other, and we're going to do a Kirk's Enterprise early years, etc., etc. I would love more, 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 and I suppose that hope is there, right?
As you said before, I think internally they've got to make this stuff as quickly as possible to stave off whatever weirdo interruptions that might happen. I mean, we are in unprecedented times. Paramount is a train wreck. Uh, just drop your nose to the grindstone and get that stuff done.
And hope David Ellison had a good experience on the second and third Kelvin Star Trek movies. Otherwise, Vendetta, who knows? Who knows? Pete, let's move from Battelle to Ortegas. And my initial question was going to be, how long do you think Ortegas will deal with PTSD and so forth, which I suppose is a real life, not that the actress has any issues, but I suppose that's a real life way to look at it. I then am reminded it's Strange New Worlds that frequently at the end of one episode they'll say, and there's this issue, and then there will be an episode where the character reflects on that. Maybe doesn't solve everything for all time within their own episode, but when do you think we're going to get the Ortegas episode that deals with some of this PTSD and perhaps other character issues, concerns, and so forth?
I mean, it's ongoing, but it answers that call. Give us more Ortegas. Tell us more about the character we've heard the least amount that we have the most love for. So how do you do that? Make us care for her more. She's fragile right now, needs building back up. The little brother as a way to learn more about her. So yeah, not soon enough, Matt.
I know that some of the vaunted critics who had early access to multiple episodes and so forth, the buzz for this season has been it's good, but it's not as good as the first 2 seasons. Um,
See, you keep saying that, and I've not read that. All I've read is it's more of the same. It's more of what we go to for this show.
well, either way, I was struck by how much I enjoyed the second episode. The first episode of course, it's coming with all the part two kind of stuff where we're deeply ensconced in the conflict and so forth. Um, I liked the second episode a whole lot better, and not even for the nostalgic thrill, although that certainly helped. But I kind of felt that the lighter flair, it's like, oh, now I'm back with these characters that I enjoy so much versus, the wartime scenario of the first episode. So my question to you is this: given that, let's say in the second season, we some of the more darker reflective episodes are the ones that maybe we reflect on less as a result. I'm thinking some of the Mbenga background stuff. Again, a fine episode. His war past. I'm also thinking the one with the did the Klingon guy be killed, etc. That whole episode. Do you think they learned anything from season two in terms of, let's have a couple more funnies or a couple more dark, or what do you think that's going to look like for this season?
The genreification of this show, right? That we have, as you said before, the war action opener, and then the follow up is the supernatural romantic comedy. That you can change it up so much week to week, continue character development. Um, that is the recipe of this show.
What other theories do you have coming out of these two episodes?
Much has been made, Matt, of all the various relationships in this third season, right? Episode two spotlights not just Chapel and Spock. What do we call that? Sapple, Chalk, but also now with the introduction of Roger, we finally see a Daredevil born again, uh, alum playing Dr. Corby. So what's that? What's that ship there? Would that be uh,
Chorby.
Chor Chorby, like Roger? Um, but Uhura and Beto here on top of continuing with the Pike Battelle. A lot of relationships.
Yeah, and first and foremost, I thought we were going to get more of a rollout for the Beto character. Now, I would assume episode 302 in the books here, I would assume that we're just going to simply get more of the character as he comes to visit again, or Uhura's personal log. Pardon me. I I meant Ortega's, but maybe it is Uhura saying Captain Pike has let him stay on for a couple weeks, and if Uhura's got that in her personal log, then wowie, watch out. They're having a good old time. Um, I think that with clearly there being more Ortega stuff and her reflection and her healing from the process, the interaction with the Gorn and so forth. Yeah, we're gonna get more of the brother as well. Um, Again, welcome stuff. Stop teasing us with more Ortegas and give us more Ortegas. Darn it.
Should we be at all worried about the nature of the relationship between Chapel and Corby? She started as a fellow, he explains, became an equal. Is that not inappropriate, predatory, etc.?
I think in the Star Trek future, everybody's responsible in that regard, and whatever the line, I'm not saying whatever the line, Pete, did you misquote? I'm saying whatever the line is that they want to give us in terms of became an equal. Okay, I don't know how that works on the archaeological HR flow chart, but I feel like it satisfies me by saying whatever it is that might have been inappropriate was made appropriate. And in the enlightened Star Trek future, whatever, you sign the E form and now everybody's good to go, or whatever it is. Um, Again, I think Star Trek is imagining a future where responsible people work this out in a responsible way, and and I'm satisfied that that's not a place that the story needs to go, that the story needs to explore because they've worked it out.
So Trelane, one episode. I think we're gonna get some more of them. I'm gonna tell you why, Matt. When he puts Spock in the glass there, calls it his little Vulcan terrarium, episode 9, you might remember, of season 3, is titled Terrarium.
I think he would be a great presence to come back, and particularly if our when we were discussing Trelane as a threat, maybe we wandered into some theory territory in that analysis. But let's suppose, Pete, that our kind of intellectual finger wagged, whoever might say, well, they haven't fully wrapped up the Trelane thing to have it meet perfectly with classic Trek. um Maybe that is there on purpose. Maybe that's because they know there's another episode coming. Rhys Darby, while not the world's biggest star and so forth, I think that if you want to say he shows up in one episode gleefully and has a good time and that's it for the character this season, maybe that's it for him playing the character for forever. Okay, you want to say you hired him saying, block out the first week in November and block out the last week in May because we're going to have you in 302 and we're going to have you in 309. Um, that would be a delight as well. We're at a point now in the series where not only can people kind of reasonably come back mid-season, but we also have some irons in the fire from prior seasons in terms of people potentially showing up. And again, that notion that your shelf is now deep enough where you can have stuff up on the shelf, story things up on the shelf that you pull down when needed, either by design or in moments of needing inspiration. It's all positives. With that, let's open Hailing Frequencies.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
To Twitter we go, Pete, where we ran our traditional poll. Here's what folks had to say. Did they give it one bell for Blues? That got 9.1%. Weird, Pete. The last time we did a poll, might have been for Superman. There was 9.1 that gave it a 1, and nobody explained themselves in the comments, but we'll get to that in all due course. Did it get 2 thumbs up, good, but missing fingers? That got 0%. I'm kind of proud of that one. I thought that was funny. Did it get 3 lizards free of Gorn Hub? That got 18.2%. Or did it get 4 emoji? I'm talking the bride, the groom, the impish person, and the Vulcan salute. That got 72.7%. And Pete, speaking of replies here on Twitter, we heard from JT Adkins, JTA is me, who says, we're off and running and I am all for it. Did I hear in a mock time fight music cue when Kirby came on board?
Oh, yes, you did.
Season 3 episode 1 gave us the adventure we love. Season 3 episode 2 was a thoroughly modern and a light but poignant character story. One problem: Guinness should not last the 23rd century. Oh, I don't know about that, JT Atkins. I
Yeah,
think
I
Guinness
would
is
disagree
forever.
with that as well.
Furthermore, can I just say, Pete, now, I'm sure JT, he just meant a well-timed zing here. Can I just say this? Do we know that all the food and drink on the Enterprise is fresh? Surely some of it is replicated, right? So
Yeah,
there's no reason why the bartender, I mean, for all we know, underneath the bar, there's a little boop boop boop, press a couple of buttons and replicate it. I confess, I don't remember if there was a pour on screen, but even if you sit and go, oh, there's a slight possibility some people might order Guinness. Okay, let's replicate up, a batch and hook it up to the tap and so forth. So JT, with all respect, in the future, all food and drink is accessible to those on the
I would
USS
think.
Enterprise.
And we've talked theories, but here, let's dive into this one. I would think at this point you might make decisions on what you're going to put into your body. Oh, we have the Guinness, but that's on replicator. Nah,
Yeah, yeah. Which I think don't.
right? Like it
Yeah,
matters, draft or bottle. Why wouldn't it matter? Oh, it's reconstitute. Nah, no thanks.
and Pete, given the low calories that come with Guinness, this is probably a reminder that Scotty he's taking the drinking a little easy. What with the restorative power of Guinness, Pete, this really should have been a podcast host. Why did we should have reached out to Guinness ahead of time, Fooey? But
He's drinking his bread.
yeah, there you go. Give us this day our daily bread/Guinness. Um, Pete, to the email inbox we go. We hear from Stacy, who says, "Hi, Matt and Pete. It's so nice to be in the Trek world again, and what a great start to the season. Wrapping up the Gorn story, followed by a super fun light episode." With 301, wow, now that's how you start a season. Love that Pike takes everyone's suggestions. This is a good team, and he knows it. Ooh, Federation first argument. Pike ain't good with that one. Pelia and Scott working together is a delight. Always track your work. I often crochet without a pattern and cook without recipes, and I almost never write what I did, which means I can't recreate anything. But I also work in a lab and yes, document everything. La'an Smart, wake the doctor first. Oh, poor Ortegas, that looks awful. Ew, they're being digested. Oh, the Scotty making it happen under pressure origin story. Oh well, maybe that wasn't so cool. Oh, show, you will not kill off Ortegas in the premiere episode of this season, do you hear me? Ah, guys, be like Pike. Shut up and let me hold you, okay? For Wedding Bell Blues, Lon teaching Spock to dance is quite a sight. Spock making jokes and getting excited at the prospect of seeing Chapel is also quite a sight. Oh dear, Roger Corby is young and cute. And Chapel's date, poor Spock. She did tell him not to wait or make any grand romantic gestures. Pike and Patel are adorable together. Pike has quite a smile, and his hair is still amazing. Must be all the product. Uhura and Ortegas' brother are adorable, and I love Uhura's outfit. Oh, so Corby is allowed to make grand romantic gestures, but Spock isn't. Reese Darby, Chaos Agent. Is he a Q? Corby is unaffected by whatever is happening. Everyone looks so good all dressed up. Oops, Corby's a dog now. The wedding planner is definitely a Q. John Delancey Q. The wedding planner is the son of the Q. I knew it. Pike can save a moment, can't he? Oh, are Lon and Spock going to be a thing now? Jitterbug. I love hearing Wham. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Okay, show. I know I said Ortegas can't die in the first episode of the season, but this isn't the alternative I was looking for. So much for a wrap to the Gorn. Tally ho, you've all been lots of fun. So true, and as always, looking forward to your thoughts, Pete. That from Stacy, and let me build off what she said. Thoughts on a La'an Spock relationship there? I had not considered that.
I don't know that they're setting that up. They've put her closer to Kirk. We know that there's more Kirk coming. I don't know that that's a way to go to create a romantic triangle between her, Kirk, and Spock, especially when you want to build the Kirk Spock dynamic to make them at one point potentially romantic rivals, turn them into best friends. I mean, could it happen? It could. We also don't know her fate, right? Um, yeah, I don't see it though.
Um, I, I mean, what you're describing, Pete, is a moderately successful, love triangle. There's potential in a love triangle, though. It'll be interesting. It's one of these things that at this point, with 8 episodes to go for the season, there's plenty of runway if they want to do that. If we get to 305, 306, and they haven't done anything with a Spock La'an potential romance, maybe it's not going to happen. But I think it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. Pete, what feedback do you have on your end?
To Facebook, Matt on the Phantastic Geek Facebook page, Jeff Beeden writes in, Star Trek is back and I'm back. Still behind on Andor. He writes Thunderbolts. We know he means Thunderbolts, asterisk. Captain America, whatever it is, Ironheart, etc. Can't wait to see Superman 2025. Only then can I listen to the PG cast. Very curious on Superman ML's take. That's, of course, Matt Lafferty. SNW, I think, had a solid 2 episode start to the season. Nothing amazing, but man, I've missed Trek. The new opening sequence is nice. but is it me or did the graphics take a step back? Now, Matt, Jeff's written it. I want to respond 100%. I think they have taken a step back. They have, as with the first two seasons, each season they've added some stuff to the title card. However, that resolution, it looks uh, it looks tinny. It doesn't seem complex or sharp. I definitely picked up on low level graphics. Is this pre Colbert cancellation cost cutting? Nobody will. Everybody fast forwards through that after they see it once. We're not going to spend our money there.
I mean, Pete, we can't know. We can only assume the end product is not what we
Well, I
want.
mean, any editors that we know are big on social media that want to, reach out. Hey, we'll take your back channel information.
I will say this, Pete, bit of a callback to our Emmys intro in the beginning. When Only Murders in the Building, a single show, a single season of one show, had more Emmy nominations than everything on Paramount Plus for an entire year. What does that say to me? It doesn't necessarily speak to quality. It speaks to they don't have the people at Paramount Plus to do, whatever it is, run the for your consideration campaign or the PR people or to go out there and host, cracker cheese and wine night for Paramount Plus or those things that maybe we kind of all roll our eyes at and go, hey, Emmy voting people, just watch the best stuff, nominate the best stuff. But there's a way to all of this, including if you're going to add new stuff to the credits, make sure the effects look great. If you're going to make a push for the Emmys, host your wine and cheese nights, etc. Maybe we're all swimming in the same pool here.
Well, Matt, I will point out one other cost saving uh, measure that's recently been taken. There are a couple of Twitter accounts for Star Trek. There's, of course, at Star Trek. There is at Star Trek on Paramount Plus, on P Plus, which they made a whole big thing about recently that they were shutting that down, So they are looking, it is very clear, anywhere they can save money to do this. Um, hey, remember how at the end of this episode, you didn't have any Will Wheaton talk about these two episodes? They made that go away. They Trellaned that into non existence, too. I don't know. Maybe they are looking to save a couple bucks here and there. To close out Jeff's message here, I now need to go back and rewatch What Are Little Girls Made Of from the original series. Don't remember that episode too well. Anyway, glad Trek is back. Glad to be listening to Phantastic Geek regularly. Life is good.
Well, Pete, breaking news. Since we started recording the podcast here, we had another reply to our Twitter poll here. So James Killen getting the Admiral spot here with his reply, his thoughts. And James says, fun start, two very different tones. Just give us more Ortegas and her family, maybe some strange and new worlds along the way. Hate to sound like one of those people, but these people need to beam down to a planet once in a while. I don't disagree.
Ooh, that's good.
He's reminding you to get back to the concept of the show. It's never a bad idea. So thank you, James, and certainly glad to give you the brassy spot here at the end. And Pete, this entire voyage for these two episodes and the 8 ahead, and season 4 and season 5 and the Academy series, etc., made possible by those who support us on patreon.com/Phantastic Geek, and our thanks to those who support us there.
Everybody who contributes gets access to exclusive content, all sorts of decks on the ship to choose, but it takes just $1 a month to come on board. can't contribute right now, you can still help out. You can get over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating or review on this or any of our now 41 podcast feeds with the DC Studios by a podcast by Phantastic Geek.
And Pete, let's keep the conversation going. Plenty of Star Trek ahead for the next 8 weeks, which is exciting indeed. Got some Marvel. Oh my goodness, Pete, in 8 days we'll be discussing Fantastic Four. What will come out of that for the future of the now beleaguered Marvel as DC Ascendant? But Pete, how can people be in touch with you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter, on Threads, on Blue Sky at Peter, Pieterjkalar, Ketelar, 12,600 followers. Can't be wrong.
And while I'm personally on Twitter as Looking Back Lost, do be in touch with the podcast. Comment on fantasticgeek.com. Check us out on Twitter, Threads, Gmail, Blue Sky, Instagram. But wait, Pete, there's even more.
Facebook.com/Phantastic Geek with the P and the H. Like it today. And do not sleep on the Phantastic Geek subreddit. That's r/Phantastic.
Well, Pete, looking ahead to next weekend where there will be a Star Trek Sunday and a Marvel movie Monday. Again, not tomorrow, but Marvel movie Monday the following Monday there. So certainly great times ahead as we dive into this season of Star Trek and beyond. With that, I will say adios to all listeners and give you, Pete, the final word.
Hang in there, guys.